What is happening, YouTube? Spectre here. I've got another reshoot for you today. It's the second time doing this one, but it's going to be the car version of the bike check I did recently. First of all, I have changed my mic position, so we'll have to see how the audio levels are. I recently did the bike check where I talked about the bike I've had, the bikes I've had in the last few years, and the bike I have currently with the Walkaround. And I mentioned I was going to do the same for my cars, so that's what this video is. Now, I did film this from actually driving my car, but it just didn't work out. The audio wasn't good enough, it kept peaking, and the camera had on a strap around my head, but it was like, the strap wasn't tight enough, so the video was bouncing up and down sort of thing. I thought, to give you guys something nicer to watch, I'll refilm it. So when I had the channel last before the reboot, 2018, I was bike only at that point and had been for sort of many years. But that same year, after I'd stopped filming, I got my car license at last. And I got my first car, which was a Renault Twingo 1.2. A Twingo 2 technically, I'll put a picture up. That was my first car, and it was a fantastic little car. It was so good. It was small, it was simple, good miles per gallon. It got about sort of 55, 60 miles per gallon, even with me driving. I loved that thing. It was such a great little car. It wasn't particularly fast, although it was actually quite nippy. It was quite sort of off the line in city speeds. It was actually quite good. It was just sort of when you got above, 60, 70 on it, started to run out of steam a bit. I drove it all the way from Lincoln down to Plymouth. Actually, I did that like 2 weeks after I passed my test. So yeah, straight into the deep end. Wasn't the most comfortable ever. It's quite small and it's pretty noisy because there's no real soundproofing or interior comfort of any kind. I was very fond of it. So I had it about a year-ish. And then, I'd had it for a while. I wanted to get something a bit more exciting, a bit faster, a bit more interesting. So I actually replaced it with a Mazda MX5 convertible, and now I think it was a 2007. I'll put a picture up again, but it was a Mark III. It's basically the one that all the MX5 enthusiasts hate. So it was the Mark III, which they already don't like to say it's too soft and heavy. Then it was the folding metal hardtop, which they really hate because it weighs as much as a passenger. And then it was also the 2 litre Sport with loads of interior stuff like heated leather seats and a Bose audio pack and all the rest of this. From a purist, track day point of view, it was pretty bad. But from me, which was just wanting a convertible to drive around and have a nice time in, it was fantastic. It was the perfect spec. So it was the Mark III but pre-facelift. It got a bit sort of weird and smiley after that. But this was the one before that. I loved the hardtop because it kept you warm in winter and it felt secure. When the roof is up, it just feels like a hardtop car. I started using it as a daily year-round. It was quite handy to have that feeling of security that you're wrapped up in. And the 2 litre Sport was good because the Sport version gets you a 6-speed manual instead of a 5-speed. And that was good for both miles per gallon at higher speeds, but also just for, the fun of having a 6-speed when you're driving it. I absolutely adored it. It was a brilliant car, but it was a little bit expensive to daily. So it was getting about 25 miles per gallon, which is actually not terrible for, a fun car. It was a little bit expensive. I don't actually earn that much money, and I sort of slightly overreached myself, and it was a little bit more than I could really justify. I felt like I was being fiscally irresponsible, should we say. So I thought, okay, I'll be a good boy, I'll be sensible, and I sold it to get something a little bit cheaper to run. And I sold it at the start of 2020, and then in March 2020, I started working from home, and I have been ever since. So I gave up my beautiful, fun car for absolutely no reason, because the miles per gallon wouldn't have mattered at that point, because I was not driving it. I was only driving it for fun and pleasure, so I was livid about that. Not as livid as the kid who bought it, who was 3 days away from passing his test before the test got stopped. So the car then spent a year sat on his driveway and he couldn't drive it. But yeah, I sold it and I replaced it with the worst car I've ever owned, which is admittedly not a long list, but the worst car, which was a Seat Ibiza 1.4. And it was a turd. Like, it ran, it was mechanically it was fine, but it was just awful. Like, it was slow, it didn't stop, it didn't handle, it wallowed around, it had no power at all. And because of that, it wasn't even cheap. Like, I think I was getting 32 miles per gallon in that car. It was because I'd sold the fun car, the MX5, to get this cheaper car, and then it wasn't even cheap, but it also wasn't fun. It really felt like the worst of both worlds. It was like Satan's Hovis. It was so disappointing. But at that point, I was kind of stuck with it. Like I'd sold a couple of cars and bikes, and I couldn't really afford to keep playing musical cars with it, so I kept that for a good while. And it was comfortable. Don't get me wrong, it looked great. I liked how it looked. It was comfortable. It had toys. It had cruise control, and you could open and close the windows with a key fob, and all of this stuff I didn't really need. The cruise control was nice. The rest I didn't really need. And it was fine. I drove it around, and I actually took it camping at one point and slept in it. So it was quite good as a tent. It was quite good. As I say, I owned that for a little while and hated every minute of it, really. And then it came to the point where I was finally looking to move back down here after months and months of fanning around. And I'd been thinking about getting a bigger car for a while. I had loads of ideas about what I wanted, but I was thinking it'd be fun to get, if I was coming back here, it'd be fun to get a bigger car that I could then do some outdoorsy stuff in. I could put a bicycle in it, I could put a kayak in it, surfboard, all of that, southwest stuff. And I figured, well, I might as well buy that while I'm up in Lincoln, and then I can use it to move house with, help, bring all my stuff down. And thank goodness I did, because when I came down, even with the van that I have currently, it was so overloaded. It was, honestly, I felt like I was going to just break the suspension. The back suspension was bagged out. Every time I slowed down or stopped, stuff would hit me from the back of the head. It was awful. It was fully terrible. Not illegal, officer, if you're watching, but not particularly legal either. But yeah, the car in question is a Renault Kangoo, which is my current car. Now, I've got a walk-around video filmed from the last time I did this, which I'll probably cut to in a minute. But yeah, just to explain this car, so it's the Renault Kangoo. It's a 2008, I think. And it's the 1.5 diesel, so it makes, I think, 82 or 85 horsepower. I always forget which one it is, because there's a couple of variants. It's actually not that slow. I don't know, it doesn't sound like a great deal, 82, 85, but it's got quite a lot of torque because it's a diesel, and it's got a reasonable amount of poke for what it is, Well, don't get me wrong, it's not exactly a Caterham, but it's quicker than the Ibiza was. Certainly, and admittedly walking is quicker than the Ibiza was. And it gets good miles per gallon. It gets, I think it averages about 52, 53 miles per gallon, even with me, which is not that bad really for a 5-seater tall boxy MPV. I'm going to cut to a walk around in a minute, which will show you around it in more detail, but a couple of its nice features, like the rear doors, which are probably the best part, because it's the MPV version, so it's the 5-seater car. So A, it's got 5 seats, which is great for me, but B, it's classed as a car for the tax, it's classed as a car for speed limits, so that's a good sort of distinction to have. But it still has the van-style rear doors, the split doors, and that's just so convenient. You can get in and out in car parks, and I like to come up here sometimes, and I'll sit up in a nice vista, I'll open the back doors and hang out and watch it. Look at this streak down the road here. Crazy. Yeah, I'll have a good time with it. So it's a great car. Now, I'd like to do a bit of camping with it down the line. I won't be doing a full camper van conversion per se, because if I went to that level of insulating it and lining it and going the full hog with it, I'd probably lose the functionality for the rear seats, and that's something I don't want to give up, so it will be a little bit simpler. My plan really is to do a like a boot box, so something I can put in the boot, and then it will fold out into a bed, and it will have probably a polite cooking station, something like that, but it won't be a part of the vehicle. So yeah, that's on the cards at some point. I don't know when, but yeah, that's the main thing. I haven't done much to it mod-wise. I fitted a radio. You know, it came with the standard old school radio, so I put a single DIN radio, proper like Amazon special. It was £19, 19, so absolutely nothing, but it's fine, you know, it's Bluetooth and that's all I need. And I've put some disgusting wheel trims on, which I'll show you in the walk around, and that's about it so far. So it needs this camper van thing. I'd like to get some roof bars at some point. I'd like to get some other stuff. I've got a few bits and pieces I'm doing to it, nothing too drastic really. In terms of how long I'm going to have it for, it's hard to say at this point. So at the moment I'm, as you know from my previous videos, I'm still in this like job limbo, so it's hard to say where I'll be living, whether I'll need my vehicle to be commutable or whether it'll just be a fun vehicle and I can work from home. And that's kind of why I got the Kangoo, not like a bigger van, is I wanted it to still be usable if I do have to go back to like an office environment. So as much as it's a tall MPV, it's actually not that big. Like, it's quite short. It's shorter than most estate cars in terms of length, I mean. Loads of headroom and stuff inside, but in terms of like wheelbase, it's quite short. It's not very wide either. It's no wider than a car, really, like a Focus or something. So it's quite usable still. I do like it a lot. I think it's a really good car. It's actually just passed its MOT the other day. Second go, but it didn't cost me very much at all. And the second one's got no advisories, so it's in good nick. I'm also only the second owner from new in 2008, which is amazing. And it's been really well looked after, this vehicle, so yeah, we'll see. I would like another MX5, but also they're quite expensive. For the one I want is sort of £5,000, and I've got quite a lot of money in vehicles already, and I'm supposed to be trying to save for a house. But yeah, so I'd quite like something faster. I'd quite like a hot hatch. I'd quite like maybe a warm hatch as well. So my old Twingo was a 75 horsepower one, and it was pretty slow. But they do make the 1.2 GT, which is still a 1.2 motor, but it's 100 horsepower. It's got a little tiny turbo on it, and that can be quite cute and fun. Or they've got the 1.6, what do they call it, RS, I think. So that could also be an option. But yeah, you know, it's up in the air for now. I like the car that I have, and we'll see where it goes. This summer really will be the test of it, depending on what happens with jobs and whether I do enough outdoorsy stuff to justify having the size of the vehicle is another thing. And also it's justified with diesel, because I don't like diesels. As much as it's the best motor for that vehicle, I don't like diesels. I don't like how they sound, I don't like how they smell. I don't like the cost of diesel. I'm going to jump back now to my walk around, so you can see in a bit more detail, have a little look around, and then I'll catch you in the next video. Back to previous me.
Alright, here she is. This is the Kangoo. I have to film somewhat from this angle just because I want to keep my reg plates hidden. But yeah, here it is. So I got the disgusting rims. So what it was is it had a set of ordinary normal van trims on there, and one of them was cracked, so I thought I'll get a new set to make it look a bit neater. And I thought, well, I can get a normal ordinary set, or I can get something silly, and clearly I went for the latter. So yeah, they look ridiculous, yeah, they look silly, but they make me laugh when I walk up to them, and they make other people laugh, so that's kind of the goal really. And like, unironically, I think they actually look quite good from back here. Now I am going to repaint the steelies which are behind them, so they'll be black rather than grey, which will help to sort of, you know, the illusion. But yeah, now this is the This is the van. So it's the MPV version. So what that means is it's taxed as a car. It's got car speed limits, and it's got the 5 seats, which makes it nice and usable as an actual vehicle. But the ideal thing with this particular spec is that I have the doors. I have the van style doors, so I can open both of these like so. I have a nice big aperture. I can also double open the doors. Just means I can actually like load the van nicely, and I can get into it in a car park, because the other ones, a lot of the sort of wheelchair spec ones have a whole tailgate, and it's so big when it opens. If you've got anything behind you, you're never getting in. But at this, I can just pop it open and squeeze in as needed. So here's the cabin. So you see I've got a little wheel cover on just to bring a bit of blue in. It's a very, very simple vehicle. Armrest in the front. I've added a nice single DIN radio, so I've got my Bluetooth, which is all I need. And the stock speakers aren't terrible. It's got speakers back here and a 12 volt as well. Now, these seats fold flat. They then roll forward. They then come out entirely. It's got storage at the top. It's got storage lockers up here, which is really nice to have. And generally, it's just a really usable vehicle. Like it's really quite practical and decent. I am happy with it, and I do enjoy having it. But we'll see if it gets enough use. It's in pretty decent condition, other than I came back to Plymouth and immediately got keyed or scratched in some way, which I'm really livid about. But I'll try and get that with a bit of paint and correct at some point. But yeah, that's been the car check. Just wanted to show you guys around the other side of my current vehicular fleet. If I do use it more, if I do some camping trips, maybe I'll look at doing some sort of better setup. Have like a static camera in the back rather than bouncing around in my head, something like that. We can work something out better. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.